up on the Grail Big Band indicator, the first thing you want to do is when you open your chart, and I'm showing the HPT bars here. So if I look on my data series, I'm going to use 221, okay? Now, if you're running the Grail with this, then 221 is what you want, but you can also run 2-range bars with this as well. It'll expand it out a little bit, not expand it out, but contract it out a little bit tighter. So you can also do that as well. I found that 4-range is a little bit too big to run on this, okay? The next important thing that you want to run is you want to load 12 days of data, okay? So again, when you put the indicator on, the Grail Big Band, 12 days of data. And the other important thing is if you want it to match what I show and what I prefer and what I found to be the best after years of testing, is I'm using a default 24/5 session template, which means it's looking at Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of data. And as far as the session template is concerned, I want to show that. So in other words, the way you get your session template is you go to your control panel, you go to Tools, Session Manager, and in this case I'm going to find the default 24/5, and you notice it starts every day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 12 a.m. and ends 12 a.m. And the important thing is the session is based on UTC 8, which is Pacific time. So that means that every day on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, my session starts new at midnight my time. That's 3 a.m. Eastern. Okay, so if you want yours to sync up to mine, that's what you need. And then you can save this. You can either save it as your default 24/5, or you could copy it and rename it. You could call it default 24/5 Big Band and save it. But that's the important setting. Now we are coming out in the future with a version of the Big Band that will automatically have that set to that time. And then from there, you can actually control the session start time and session end time that you want it to do the analysis in. And that will open up other avenues for your trading as well that I'll show once that comes out. Okay? All right, so once that's done, and you put the indicator on the chart, and again, you need 12 days of data. When you put the indicator on the chart, this was about 2 seconds after midnight my time, right here, about 2 seconds after 3 a.m. Eastern. You knew exactly where all the levels were for that day, because this is using not only a smart market profile, but numerous other algorithms in computing all of these bands and levels. So when we first started, we had what's called the OP. That's the opening price. If I scroll to the end, you'll see what that is, because that doesn't change. But some of you can probably see this. It's just this horizontal line right here, this yellow line. That's the opening price. So what it then, it gives you a prediction, and that is that the predicted day was normal. It was predicted to be a normal day, and I'll talk about what that means. But later on, you're going to see that we went to expanded here on the NASDAQ, and I'll show you when it went there. Now, what's important, once you have this done and you start trading, right, if you look at the bands that are here, it produces basically 8 bands up and 8 bands down every session. All right, I'm going to scrunch it so you can see. Okay. However, it also uses a smart market profile, and I'm just going to activate it so you can see what that is. Okay. Some of you are familiar with market profile. This is a smart market profile. It uses different algorithms. But what it's predicted is and it'll put a green band as to what the #1 smart profile was on the downside for the day, and a cyan band for what the #2 was. And these were the 1 and 2 levels today. And I'll talk more about that. If we look on the upside, we didn't have any on the upside today because we were breaking out trading higher the last couple of days. So because of that, we had nothing today on the upside of smart market profile, only on the downside. I'm going to go ahead and hide that. The way you can hide this again, I just go in here. If I stop clicking on it, click off, show profile, click apply, and you have it. But you notice the 2 levels are still here. So what this was telling you was that these 2 levels are generally very good levels to get a nice bounce off of, or sometimes a session low, but they were not tied to a band. In other words, this is a band, another band, another band. When they're tied to a band, they're much stronger. When they're just out here in space by themselves, they're not. And later on, I'll show an example of the crude oil where they were tied to the band. Okay, and so always keep that in mind. So how can we trade this? All right, the OP and the initial OP bands are very significant levels coming out. And the way it's recommended to trade, I'll try to blow this up a little bit. And I will circle back to questions. I'll try to touch on what I can here, and then I will circle back on any questions. So this was the opening price. The way I like to trade it at the beginning, if you're up at this time, trading the European session, and later I'll show how you can also trade the pit opens. I knew I should have turned my phone off, but I'll show how to do the pit opens. So initially coming out, and you'll see this on a number of charts, when we break below the first band here, the OP band, that's a short. Okay, that's a short coming out. Normally your stop would be the OP, 1 tick above the OP. So if you took the short here, your stop is 1 tick above the OP. The first level on the bus is what I call the gray area down. Okay. Some of you have seen when I talk about this, if you come and penetrate the gray area down and then you close back up in it, that's a good out. Okay. If you're an aggressive trader, you can actually take a long. Okay, but that's a more aggressive trade. As we came back up to the OP, same thing. We come up to the OP, we close below it, you can go short. All right, and you'll see that these levels hold and are valid all throughout the trading session. All throughout the trading session. As we continued to move, we got into our pit open. Our pit open was right here. And we came down and we approached the various bands. I'm going to show how to also do the various bands. You can trade the bands the same way. As we came into the first band, it was here. I like to take it. You can split it with a horizontal line. All right. So basically what that gives you is you had a value here of 59.2175 and 19 and a quarter. That's roughly 10 ticks. Okay. Band a little bit bigger today because of the volatility. But again, the way you can trade it is it comes down. Again, this is the band 1. This was band 2. I'll explain the significance of band 2. Coming down, you can short it when it closes. Below, your stop and reverse would be up above, and we continued on for a pretty nice trade setup. However you wanted to manage it, management's always the integral part of trading, and there is no one-size-fits-all for management. We talk about how to get out of trades when you're managing, but the next level is a good level if you haven't reached it, or if you do reach it, okay? We went to the second band. The same thing applies. I'm going to just move as we came down to the second band, the same thing. We're coming down, close below can be a reshort or a continuation short. Your stop and reverse would be above the band. Now, we moved into the number 1 and number 2 predicted smart market profile levels. I indicated that when they're out here by themselves, in other words, out here in thin air, they're not nearly as strong as when they're tied to a band. So had they been tied to this band here or tied to this band here, it would have been much stronger. Generally, when they're not, it tends to slosh through them and usually doesn't hold. Okay, so we came down to the next band. This is band 3. Again, a good profit taking area if you're short. We come into the band, we close above it, you can exit out. Right? Same thing applies again. So that is that if you're looking to take another trade just trading the bands, as we close down below it, you can go short. Your stop and reverse would be above it. All right, so that would be a stop and reverse. Since we're above it here, your stop and reverse to go short would be below here with a stop above here. And so that would have taken you through that trade. Notice you would have had another long entry here, and then this was your short. Short taking us down almost to the next band level. Sometimes they'll come within a couple ticks of it, other times they'll hit it. The other important thing I wanted to point out is once you hit, for example, come down and get near a band, will a lot of times come back up to the next band and bounce, and that's what we did. In fact, I think in the room this morning I actually indicated that this was a really good short area. Why was it? Because as we came up into it, we didn't get below the middle, and we closed down, and that was a good short. It came down to the next band level here. Again, if you split it, you go long above it, you can go short below it, and once we break below, then this is the area I'm looking at. Once we break above, this is the area I'm looking at. Okay, and you can see, what did we do? We went band to band again. We were from this band up to the next band. And from that, you had a pretty good bounce. All right, and that brings us to where our current time is right now. Now, notice as we're coming back up, we're trying to get back into the number 2 and number 1 smart market profile levels, which were predicting support. Now they're going to become resistance because we were trading below it. All right. And of course, a lot of you know this time now, say from 9 o'clock until 10 o'clock Pacific, that's noon until 1 Eastern, markets tend to move sideways because it's lunchtime. So this is not typically a time that I'm looking to trade the equities. Okay. So now, a couple quick questions and I'm going to move on. Somebody asked me what the percentage, I think Ray, you asked that, what these percentage signs mean. And I'll show you. These are checkpoints. So when this market started out today, it was predicted to be a normal range day. Normal range day typically is you'll go from band 2 below to band 2 above. Okay, that's typically a normal range day. And it started out normal. All right, notice we didn't even hit band 1 yet, and it was 5:30 in the morning. This percentage sign, 76%, means for this time of day, on this day, for this type of movement, we're 76% of what normal is, okay? That's what it just means. We're only 76% of what normal means. Later on, we actually moved from normal to expanded, okay? See how we moved to expanded? It was based on all of the prior research. So at this time, 7:30 Pacific, we were 176% of what is normal. So a big expanded day. These are the checkpoints where it says show checkpoints. If you uncheck this and click it, they'll disappear. If you click them on, I may have to reload it, they'll reappear. There, it reappears by itself. Okay, that's what that means. All right, so let me move on to a couple more charts. I'm going to show crude oil and a couple of others, and then we'll take some more questions. So here comes the crude chart from today. Now, some of you who follow crude know that today was oil inventory. Okay, it was predicting compressed, but I can tell you that on oil inventory days you can ignore the prediction of compressed. Okay, the reason it's saying that is because it's looking at the prior day's history. So if you ever see compressed on an oil inventory day, it's going to go to normal or expanded. But again, at maybe 2 seconds after midnight Pacific, 2 seconds after 3 a.m., it was predicting this was the #1 smart market profile level that it was predicting for the day. Okay, I can show that again. If I click on this, and you'll see it. See the long band out here to the bottom? Okay, you also see the long one up here to the top. Well, that's the #1 smart profile level to the upside. And you see how this is attached to a band. We have a band down here. This is attached to it. That's much stronger than if it was just out there in the air by itself. Up here, the #1 to the upside is also attached to a band. So those are strong levels. So you knew coming out that if the market got down here, there was a very good chance not only are we going to get a really big bounce, but that might be the session low for the day. Just like if we get up to here, there's a very good likelihood that we're not only going to get a very strong bounce back, but that could be the session high for the day. I'm going to go ahead and now the same way that I talked about trading, the OP band applies for crude oil. So as we broke through, it was a short. As we came down at first to the bottom of the gray area and closed back up, you could recover. As we came back in again, it's a short again. This time we didn't close above the bottom of the gray. We moved to the #1 profile level, #1 smart profile level, and that held. And then we went to the upside, going long, hitting band 1. Now we move in. This was, we're trading crude oil on the oil inventory, so it tends to be very sideways from about 6 a.m. Pacific, that's 9 a.m. Eastern, until the report. The report comes out at 10:30 Eastern. All right, so here's the report. You can see the big shotgun. Like to wait 2 minutes off of that. Okay, we're still shotgunning all through here. We haven't even gotten to the 2-minute mark until right here. Okay, so none of this is tradable in here. What did we do? Well, as we came down, you got your short entry through the gray area and closing up. Okay, all through here, it's still short, trying to hold. Eventually it flipped to long and then back down to short. And that was all in this time span of about 10 minutes after the report. Notice we came down, we checked the number one important level again and couldn't get there. All right, and now we're moving up. So as we moved up, you can be long, you hit the next band, and then we hit this one. And so it's trying. I don't know if it's going to get there yet or not, but again, keeping in mind, this is the number one smart market profile level for the day, predicted up here. Question, do I put more contracts on at those levels? You're talking about the smart market profile levels? Not usually, Mary. I mean, I try to be consistent in my trading, so no, I try to be more consistent. Your question is first time in. It's probably maybe not a bad idea. Okay, not a bad idea at all to do that. All right. Notice also just a quick thing here when you're working with this. You can change the opacity on here if you want to show things a little bit lighter or darker. So if I go to here and notice my opacity is 5, if I change that to 2 and apply, it's much lighter, isn't it? Okay, you can hardly see it, but it's there. It's much, much lighter. So again, if you don't like the colors opacity, you can change your opacity. I'm going to go back to 5. I don't think I've covered that before, but some of you might know that. And just like I did everything else, you can hide or keep things. Okay, so if I don't want to show the labels, and let me show what I mean by that. Come on, crude oil. Okay, these are the labels. So in other words, here's your OP. That's the opening price. This is the band 1 level, band 2, band 3, etc. If I want to suppress those, if I click show labels, they disappear. Okay. If I don't want to see the bands, I can click that and they disappear. Okay. The plots are still there, but the coloring on the bands are gone. Notice the gray area is still there, the OP is still there. All right, if I don't want to see the gray area, I click that off and that's gone. Okay, we still have the OP band, we still have the OP line. If I don't want to see the day types, I can click on that, and off to the left you won't see that anymore. If I don't want to see those percent signs telling me what percentage of a normal predicted move are we running at any given moment, I can click that off. And of course I showed you already on the profile, the smart market profile. If you don't want to see that, you click it off. And lastly, if you don't want to see these lines on show plots, you can click that off. And now we have nothing here. Okay, absolutely nothing. And that's there if you've got other indicators like the DT or whatever. I'm going to come back. I'm going to do the bands. I'm going to do our gray area. I'm going to do our day types, show plots, show labels, and we're good to go. Larry, did I answer your question? How do I remove the non... Oh, you mean on other indicators? Like you have other indicators on there? I'll circle back to that. Yeah, okay, you're talking about the DT. You're talking about this. So here's your DT, right? See, mine is unchecked right now. But if I check it, there it is. That's what you're talking about, right? Yeah, I took it off. I suppressed it because I wanted to show this. Okay? Let's look at the yen from today. And then I'm going to show a couple of other ways to go on this. Here's the Japanese yen. All right, Japanese yen today, couple seconds after midnight my time, couple seconds after 3 a.m. Eastern. We had our OP, we had our OP band, we had our gray, and we had our bands up and down. This was the number one smart market level, profile level today on the downside. Okay, this was number two because that's the cyan. And you know that by what? If you go look in here, just a refresher. The number one peak below is lime. The number two peak below is cyan. Lime, cyan. The number one peak above is red. That's this. Number two peak above is this fuchsia color. You can change those if you want. Just type in a different color if you don't like it. If you don't like your color, you don't have to keep your color. All right. Same thing applies as we, let me open this up. Here's your OP, here's your OP band. As we break below your short, okay, we came down to the number one profile level in the band, good place to take profits, right, and done. We came back up to the OP band, closed below it, short, back to the level, taking profits. Again, as you can trade this band the same way, if I put a horizontal line in here and split it, okay, it results in very few ticks as far as risk. So as you come down through it, you can short it. Notice we hit what I call this is the number two smart market profile. It was not attached to any band, so it's generally not as strong, but in this case it did hold. And as you come back up through, you can go long, back up into the OP again. All right. And again, you can see as we traded through, long, you can go short, reversing to long, going up into the number one smart market profile level, but again, this one is not attached to a band. Okay, so it's generally not as strong, but it's holding. All right, so again, you knew what these levels were about 3 seconds after the market session opened, which was 3 seconds after 3 a.m. Eastern or my time, midnight Pacific. So you knew the levels up and down. So this time we have both. All right, and I think I have one more example. I think I have 6E. Yeah. Okay, here's 6E. Now I think I turned off, yeah, I show plots. There we go. Show labels. Okay, this was 6E. Same thing. We go short, back into the gray area, close up, take it out. Some of you may be real aggressive traders and go long up in here. I'm not advocating that right now, but I trade that way. I can guarantee you that in the first few hours, that's what I do. But all right, as we came back up through, it's long. We came up into the number one band. Okay. Came back down through here, another long entry, and then short. Back to the number one smart market profile level predicted in 6E for the day to the tick. This one's attached to a band to the tick. And notice you had another reentry here if you wanted. And you had another reentry here if you wanted. This is all the way out here. So these bands are tradable all day long. And then, of course, you got to temper that with what I said in the equities. When you get into the lunch hour in equities, that's not the best time generally to be trading unless the market's really cycling, right? So here we go, long through here, back up into number one band, and that's where we're at right now. Do we have something to the upside here? No. So we don't have a smart market profile today to the upside because we're pushing to higher levels here in the 6E, but that's it. Okay. One other thing I'm going to show, and this is what we're working on. You can also set this up to trade during different other times. Okay. So for example, let's say I wanted to see 6E trading off what I call the 9:30 pit open, which is basically the RTH time. I can change my session template. Go to data series. Remember, 12 days of data. Where I was running 24/5, but I'm just going to show you the CME, and I've created other ones here as well. U.S. Index Futures RTH. So this is the RTH time. This time goes from 9:30 Eastern until 4:15 Eastern. Okay, and I'm going to hit OK. Now what's going to happen is you're going to get a different OP, you're going to get a different gray area, and you're going to get different profile levels and bands because it's not looking at the entire data for 24 hours, is it? It's only looking at the data now. It's only analyzing the data during the RTH session. Okay, and so here it is. Here's your OP, right? It was what? It was long into the gray area, take profits, re-enter, long. This was number one and number two levels predicted today based on the RTH session, okay? We did travel through it to get you some nice profits, and then notice what happened. What was support now becomes, what was now resistance now becomes support, okay? And now we get to the second band level, and that's where we're at, okay? That's it. That's what I wanted to show. Now I'll circle back to take any other questions from anybody, and once we get those exhausted, we'll go ahead and wrap up. I want to remind everybody that, again, tomorrow, for members, we have our early session because there is news tomorrow, and so we're going to start at 5:20 Pacific, 8:20 Eastern. And then, of course, on Friday, same thing. Friday is non-farm payroll, also a major report on the Canadian dollar. All the markets will be moving on Friday. Did I miss anybody's questions? Or any other questions from anybody? I hope this was helpful as far as showing you, opening up. It's kind of like having a crystal ball into the future as to what you can expect. Okay, and these numbers aren't made up. You'll see this day in and day out. Day in and day out, they continue to repeat. It really gives you a super trading edge in your trading. Now, question from Ray. So just watching the bands, do you watch the outer limits, chop, and profit? I'll take those into account sometimes, Ray, as to what's going on. So like, for example, here, when the 6E came down into the OP again, notice what we had. We had the profit blue. We had the chop in a good area. We had the outer limits in a good area. Just this by itself was a good retrace setup, wasn't it? Okay. And I mean, it almost picked it. As we came down again into the number 1 and 2 profile levels for the day, which were resistance, now become support. Again, what did we have? We had a chop set up here on blue. We had another chop and outer limits set up on blue. We had another chop and outer limits set up here. Notice all three of them nice trades. As we came up to the next band, remember I said we typically go band to band. As we came up to the next band, the chop and outer limits were red, indicating some good profit taking. So the answer to your question, yes, I do look at those. You have to be very patient with this approach, okay? This is not an approach where, like when we're trading the Grail, a lot of times we can be done in a half an hour or 45 minutes or an hour. But again, you can pick your time sessions here like I just did. I'll use other sessions. For example, for nat gas, I'll use 5:30 a.m. my time. For gold, I'll start at 5 a.m. For crude oil, I'll start at 6 and trade the pit open. This opens up, in addition to your normal Grail, a whole other avenue of trading. And like I said, what we're working on the next version of Big Band is, so it's all synced up to the Pacific session data, but then you can carve the segment out like I did here and analyze, okay, I just want to see from say 8:30 in the morning or 9:30 in the morning Eastern to maybe 4:15. That's what I want to trade. That's what I want to see. Question from MM. It seems for 6E, the Euro Open one would be the best, but 6J, who knows? You know what? All of them are good, MM. I could cycle through every one of the currencies here. The Aussie, the Swiss. The Canadian's probably the only exception because the Canadian really doesn't get going till about 5 a.m. Pacific. But all the others, it's awesome. Yeah, Mary, but let me hold on that. Your question is, can we get a list of opens I like for each market? Let me wait until the next version comes out. Again, you can ask me in the room again tomorrow, but I want to wait till the next version comes out because then you're going to want to pinpoint that in. What was your question, MM? The session templates. Yeah. Oh, you're talking about the Asian markets open. Yeah, that's another one, but you'll have to completely change your session templates on that. You can roam, 20 contracts at a time is a good amount. You certainly can. If the market's liquid enough, and most of them are. Raymond, you're talking about what, session times to analyze for futures? Is that what you're talking about? Yeah. When the new one comes out, I will. I mean, I can just tell you right now, my rule of thumb, 5 a.m. for gold, 5:30 for, I'm talking Pacific now, 5:30 for net gas, 6 a.m. for crude oil, 6:30 for the equities, midnight for just about anything. Okay, that European session is a strong session. If you put any one of these up, including the NASDAQ, including the ES gold, that European Open is powerful. Okay. All right, any final questions? Yeah, Dan, hang on. Let me get that to you right now. Can you hang on a second? I'm going to wait here if there's any final question. I just need to respond on one question here on Dan. Okay, I responded to your question, Dan, if you can see that. That'll take you to where you need to be. What was your question, Ron? Is this the Grail you showed or? Oh, no. I just have the Grail suppressed, Ron. That's all. The Grail's here. I can turn it on. I can turn this on, for example, and I can reload it. I'll show you. I just have it turned off, so we're not looking at it. Hang on a second. There it is. See it? And again, notice how the trade setups. This was the OP. This was the OP. This was the number one profile. Okay? This, not too much. But these were all there. So yeah, you can dovetail this in. I just had it turned off, that's all. I mean, so we wouldn't look at it. I didn't want to confuse a bunch of things on here. That's the nice thing about these indicators and the Grail automatic trader and the big man. You can turn things on, turn them off. If you don't want to see anything, you can suppress them. You just go with what you want. Do I like the European Open? Absolutely, Doug. It's stellar. That's a moneymaker every night. Moneymaker every night. There's several traders, well, especially the ones who are overseas, but several traders here in the U.S. who trade that, and it's a stellar session. The S's. When? Pacific, midnight Pacific. You can go all the way up to 5 a.m. if you want to gut it out for 5 hours. Noon Pacific. No, noon, not noon. Midnight Pacific. Sorry. Midnight Pacific. Not noon Pacific. Midnight Pacific. Okay? Final question? Oh, yes, Brian, you had a question. What is the difference between the smart bands and the D1, D2? Okay, good question. Okay, so normally the difference is every day it's going to give you 8 bands down and 8 bands up, okay? On a normal day, and we're normal right now, generally band 2 above and band 2 below, if we get there, will pretty much be your highs and or lows for the day. It doesn't mean we'll get to both of them, but when you get to one of them, that's usually on a normal day going to be the high or low for the session for the day. Okay. In addition to that, the smart market profile, which this is based on a smart market profile, and that's what this is. Okay. So if you link these up in conjunction with each other, now there's when they're attached, it's pretty strong. That's the difference. On a compressed day, you might only get to the band 1 below and the band 1 above, okay? On an expanded day, you could run all 8 or more. Remember on some of those days when the NASDAQ was moving 160 handles in one day? Well, once it went expanded, you blew through band after band after band. You can just keep hitting them short. Yeah, the Asian Open, that's typically, for the yen, it's around 5 p.m. Pacific, Ed, for the yen. Around 5%. Yeah, Dan, here's my number to contact me at. Hang on. There you go. Yep, and then I think for the Aussie dollar, Ed, it's a little bit later. All right, if there's no more questions, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. You want to see the NQ and CL for today. You want to see the year? All right, I showed the NQ already. Did you come in a little late, Steve? Or you just want to capture them, I think is what you're saying. Okay, so hang on. What do you mean by a phone session, MM? I'm not quite sure. Oh yeah, no problem. I have those. If you want a personal coaching session, I can set it up. It'll cost you a few rubles, but it's not expensive. It's $100 for the hour. That's not expensive. It's cheap. Okay, let's take a look, Steve. Let's look at NQ. Okay, here's the NASDAQ. Okay, this is the NASDAQ running the session. All right, so coming out of the OP band, it was short to the gray area, taking profits, back up. Back to the OP level, short, coming down to test band 1. Okay, we continued through band 1 as I showed here. Then through band 2, and we went expanded. This was the number 1 profile level, the number 2 profile level down for the day, but as I indicated, it was not attached to a band, so they are not as significant. Went into band 3. However, once we break and we come back to it, they'll act as initial resistance. Okay, came down to 4 to the tick, back up to 3, back to 4, back to 3, back again into the profile. And that's where we're at right now. And as I indicated, from this time until about here is the lunch hour. Don't like to trade then. It's choppy. Paul, I sent you a link there. You see that on your question? Yeah, that'll answer your question. That's a deal. What did I miss? Crude oil. Is that what you wanted, Steve? Crude. Okay. So crude. Remember, crude today had inventory, right? Come on, chart. All right. Here's the crude. So we came out short. This right here, you can see it. I'll open it up. This level was the #1 smart market profile level predicted for the day, and that was tied to a band. So that's a very significant level. We came right down to it, I think to the tick, and bounced. And of course, we went through the OP for long, up into the first band. All right, as we move closer, we got, remember, I don't like to trade on oil inventory days from the pit open until the report. I just don't like to trade it. It's too choppy. But then after the report, here's our report, came out at 7:30 Pacific. Here's 2 minutes afterwards. Okay, notice after all this time, we were trading right back at the OP level, the opening price level of the European session in crude oil. Okay, so it was a short entry through here. A long as we came back up, and then short again through it, and then we came down and tested twice. We tested the #1 smart market profile level, couldn't get there. All right. Then we went band 1, band 2. And band 2 so far is holding. And this is this level up here is the smart market profile high level for the day. If we get there, we still have a couple of hours yet. Well, actually more than that, because don't forget this is a 24/5 session. So this can run all the way to midnight. Okay. Got it? All right. Any final questions? Well, that brings us almost to the full hour here. That's good. Any final questions? I will get this. This is being recorded. Let me end the recording here. This is what I'm talking about, how you can catch huge moves in these markets trading this big band, okay? We're running expanded. And as we started out the session, it got short through here. This was the #1 predicted smart market profile today, all right? We initially came down to it, got a nice bounce for profit taking, okay? Then we cracked through it, and we hit the #2 smart profile, but #2 is not tied to anything. It's out here in air. Came back up into the OP. This was after the pit open this morning, right? So this is within our pit open. Got short again, and we just ripped band after band after band. We're running an expanded area. So far we've hit 6 of them because we're running expanded. Well, I think it's going to be good that they changed the $5 per tick net, and I know that for a lot of traders that's a little more palatable. I actually think it helps the liquidity too. Yes, it does, Paul. That includes everything. It absolutely does. And it is. You're welcome. All right, it looks like I got all the questions. Let's go ahead and wrap up here. Everybody have a good day.